In a quiet military town in North Carolina, the silence of a cold December night was shattered by the echo of gunshots. A woman named Michelle Thier ran into the Video Hut store and frantically screamed that her husband had been killed in front of her eyes. Her sweater and hands were covered in blood. After reaching the store, Michelle called 911 and then ran back into the darkness toward her husband. She waited for the police beside her husband, who was lying in a pool of blood on the ground. Police officers arrived at the scene a few minutes later. Michelle was kneeling beside her husband Marty in the parking lot, cradling his bloody head in her arms. The police continued to assure her that everything would be okay. However, Marty, who had been shot 5 times in the head, died a few minutes later. That night, the Thier couple had attended a Christmas party together. Afterwards, Michelle needed to stop by her office to pick up some of her things, so Marty waited outside in the car. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Hearing the gunshots, Michelle rushed out of the building. She found her husband lying on the ground where the cars were parked. At first glance, this attack appeared to be a random armed robbery murder, but contrary to what was believed, this was not the case. Police teams investigating the scene began to suspect that this attack was more of a planned murder than a robbery. This was because the points where the bullets struck, the firing distances and the crime scene pointed to a planned execution. However, the real question that puzzled everyone was, why was a young pilot with a promising military career ambushed in the dark? Who wanted Marty dead, and why? In this file, we will witness who was actually behind this murder, which raises questions in our minds and why they did it. Frank Marty Thier was born on February 26, 1969, in Würzburg, Germany. His father was serving in the U.S. Army. For this reason, Marty was born in Germany, where his father was stationed at the time. After his father's assignment ended, they returned to the United States with his family. As the child of a military family, Marty's childhood was spent in various places due to constant relocations, but he spent most of it in Denver, Colorado. Marty was known as someone who didn't talk behind others' backs, didn't gossip, and was devoted to his work and family. His disciplined character led him to the military. By the time he graduated from high school in 1987, he had made up his mind. Therefore, he applied to the United States Air Force Academy. After successfully completing his training at the academy and graduating in 1991, he began serving in the military as a C-130 transport aircraft pilot. His job often took him to different countries. During these years, Marty earned the trust of his superiors with his sense of responsibility and dedication to his work. There was someone important in Marty's life during this period, Michelle Catherine, whom he had met in high school. Michelle Catherine was born in Florida in 1970. She spent her childhood with her family in the southern United States. Those who knew her described Michelle as energetic, social, and outgoing from an early age. During her school years, she was known for being successful in her studies and popular among her friends. She had strong communication skills, which made it easy for her to make friends. This aspect of her personality led her to pursue psychology. She found the study of the human mind and relationships fascinating. She pursued her university education in psychology. She completed her graduate studies and participated in volunteer work during this period. These 2 young people decided to continue their relationship, which began in high school, into the years ahead. Marty kept in touch with her throughout his busy years at the academy. The year 1991 was an important period for both Marty and Michelle. Immediately after Marty graduated from the Air Force Academy, they married Michelle. Although they appeared to be 2 incompatible personalities from the outside, these 2 individuals actually created a balance within themselves. Marty's calmness complemented Michelle's energy. Michelle's sociability brought Marty more into contact with the outside world. This made them appear to those around them as a harmonious couple when they married. Although they moved frequently due to Marty's military career, they had a happy relationship. Everything was going well for the couple in the early years of their marriage. However, as time went on, Marty's overseas assignments and busy flight schedule meant that he and Michelle were often apart, which began to strain their relationship. Although these difficulties in their lives caused friction between them, they remained committed to each other. While Marty was assigned to different countries and cities for work, Michelle was evaluating job opportunities to continue her career. By the end of the 1990s, Marty was assigned to Pope Airfield, and the couple moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina. Their new life in Fayetteville marked a new chapter for the Thier couple. As Marty entered a busy period at his new post, Michelle began working alongside Dr. Thomas Harbin, an experienced psychiatrist. Here, she aimed to advance in her profession and obtain her own license. As their marriage progressed, Marty's long-term assignments began to create feelings of loneliness and confinement in Michelle. This was the first step in the cracks forming in the Thier couple's relationship. The couple's different personalities were the second step in the cracks. Marty's job often took him on long flights and different assignments. When he returned from work, he mostly wanted a quiet home environment, wishing to relax and unwind peacefully with Michelle after a tiring day. Michelle, on the other hand, had a very different mood from Marty. Due to her energetic nature, she wanted a more social life. She wanted to participate in social events, go out with friends, and meet new people. This situation led to growing incompatibilities between the couple, putting a strain on their relationship. Michelle thought Marty was too introverted, while Marty resented Michelle's constant desire to be out and about. These kinds of disagreements were actually common in many marriages. However, the stress of military duty and frequent separations amplified these disagreements. The Thier couple sought marriage counseling to resolve these issues in their marriage. This situation showed that neither of them had given up on each other and that they wanted to resolve their problems. During the counseling sessions, Michelle expressed her desire for more attention and a more active social life, while Marty expressed his desire for a calm and controlled marriage. Unfortunately, therapy was not enough to resolve these problems. Michelle increasingly sought a different life. Marty did not want to change his routine and fixed order. By the mid-2000s, Michelle and Marty's marriage had been seriously shaken. The rift in their relationship had grown rather than healed. The daily arguments were driving the Thier couple further and further apart. Unable to reach an agreement between themselves, Michelle decided to leave the house. She decided to live elsewhere, at least temporarily. Marty stayed in the house. They thought that spending some time apart would be good for both of them and would save their marriage. They lived apart that summer. By the end of 1999, the internet was slowly becoming part of everyday life. Social media platforms did not yet exist, but chat rooms, forums, and online dating sites offered people opportunities to meet and talk. Marty's absence had led Michelle to enter this virtual world. For Michelle, these chat rooms were like an escape that made her forget her loneliness. Filling the void left by Marty's absence and finding the social circle she was looking for here excited her. She met people through these platforms and chatted for hours. After a while, these conversations began to go beyond everyday topics. The attention and compliments from new friendships made her feel emotions she hadn't felt in a long time. Michelle soon began seeking more than just friendship. She discovered the secret world of sex chat rooms in these chat rooms. She started posting ads on her profile to meet other men. She had posted an ad stating that she wanted a partner between the ages of 25 and 35, physically fit, attractive, and available to meet 2 or 3 times a week. But looks alone weren't enough. She wanted a man who could also challenge her intellectually. During their time apart, Michelle was with many men. She engaged in different types of sexual activities that she couldn't try while married, thanks to these chat rooms. After months of separation, Marty was ready to save their marriage, and they decided to go back to marriage counseling. During the therapy sessions, they again discussed the problems they were experiencing in their marriage. The only problem was that Michelle was left alone and isolated from social life due to Marty's long-term assignments. After Marty agreed to fix these problems, the couple decided to try to be together again. Michelle returned home. They gave their relationship a second chance. On December 17, 2000, everything seemed to be going smoothly. That evening, Marty and Michelle attended a Christmas party hosted by Michelle's employer. Their friends and colleagues said they saw them together, hand in hand, smiling and standing close like any loving couple. No one suspected that a tragedy would unfold within a few hours. After the party, the couple left to go home. However, before returning that night, Michelle asked Marty to stop by her office. She said she needed to pick up a few books. Michelle got out of the car to enter the building and go to her office. Marty decided to wait for her outside in the car. When Michelle arrived at the office, gunshots suddenly rang out outside. The silence of the night was shattered by 5 gunshots echoing through the air. Marty was the target of the bullets. Marty collapsed to the ground, caught off guard by this unexpected attack. When Michelle ran outside, she found her husband lying on the ground covered in blood. She instinctively started running. She immediately entered the nearby Video Hut store and asked the employees for help. "They shot my husband. Call the police immediately." Without wasting any time, 911 was called immediately. Within minutes, sirens could be heard, and police cars and ambulances arrived at the scene. When the teams arrived at the scene, the situation was clear. Marty, lying at the bottom of the stairs, was in critical condition. He had been shot 5 times, and despite all the efforts of the medical teams, Marty died. Before continuing with the video, if you enjoyed it, I would be very happy if you like the video and subscribe to my channel. This will motivate me to make better videos for you. Now, let's continue. The crime scene investigation team conducted a thorough examination of the stairs and the surrounding area. Evidence was collected, bullet casings were numbered, and the circumstances of the attack were examined. Initial findings suggested that this attack did not appear to be random. Marty had been targeted. The bullets had been fired from close range and aimed directly at him. Initial police investigations focused on the possibility that this attack was a robbery. But this did not resemble a typical robbery or a random act of violence. The victim seemed to have been specifically targeted. Nothing had been stolen. Marty's wallet, watch, everything was still there. This murder did not appear to have occurred during a robbery. It seemed personal. The police began questioning Michelle shortly thereafter. She explained that she and Marty had come to the office to retrieve her book. While she was getting her book from the office, Marty waited outside. When he heard gunshots, he ran outside. She said she found her husband lying on the floor covered in blood. Her story made sense, but it was only a starting point for the police. Initially, possibilities such as robbery or accidental violence were considered, but the police soon realized that the attack could not have been accidental. The location of the incident was a narrow ambush point. The attacker must have known that the victim would pass by there. Days after the murder, the police's attention naturally began to focus on Michelle among the witnesses. Her statement was important because she was the person closest to the victim at the time of the murder. Michelle's behavior that night raised questions in the detectives' minds. Why did she choose to run to a nearby video rental store instead of using the phone in her office to call for help? This was a strange situation. Michelle explained it as follows. She said she panicked and ran outside when she heard the gunshots. When she went outside, she couldn't get back inside because she had left her keys in the office, which prevented her from reaching her phone. With no other option, she ran to the video rental store and asked the staff to call 911 for her. However, the detectives were not convinced by this statement. In their opinion, Michelle's story left room for doubt. Based on their experience, they began to sense some gaps and decided to investigate Michelle and Marty's personal lives further. During their neighborhood investigation, the detectives discovered problems in the couple's marriage. Different details about Michelle's social life began to emerge. Her neighbors and friends said she had an outgoing personality and often met people online. The detectives then decided to examine Michelle's digital footprint. First, her phone records were examined. One number stood out as Michelle had been calling it constantly. Although Michelle claimed this person was a friend, the frequency of their calls suggested it was more than just a casual friendship. Then Michelle's computer and online activities came to light. When the police thoroughly examined the records and email correspondence on Michelle's computer, they realized they were dealing with much more than just a routine marital dispute. One person she had met online stood out. This person was also the very same person she had been talking to frequently on the phone. The correspondence revealed an emotionally and romantically intimate relationship. The person the detectives reached at this point began to be seen as the prime suspect in the murder. This man was John Diamond. Diamond was a sergeant serving in the 82nd Airborne Division, one of America's most renowned military units. He was known in the Army for his disciplined, tough temperament and strong build. His life, like Marty's, was spent within the military order. However, he had a different side to him in his private life. He was known among his peers for his sociable, courageous, and outgoing attitude. Michelle's relationship with Diamond began in chat rooms during the period when she started living apart from Marty. Their online conversations quickly moved into real life. Michelle began to feel different in the face of Diamond's interest and captivating energy. She found an excitement she had lost long ago when she was with him. After a while, their interactions were no longer limited to the digital realm. Although both were married to other people, they now had a relationship. The couple attended swinger parties, where couples swap partners for one-night stands. After months with Diamond, Michelle returned home after Marty convinced her, and she accepted his offer to save their marriage and be together again as before. But Michelle's mind was confused. She was torn between the excitement she felt with Diamond and the married life she had built over the years. She continued her marriage with Marty but did not sever her ties with Diamond. As soon as Diamond's name appeared in the file, the police turned their attention to him and he was immediately questioned. Investigations began into his whereabouts at the time of the murder, and statements were taken from people around him and his wife. Questioned under military discipline, the sergeant denied the murder charges. He said he was watching a movie at home with his wife Lourdes on the night of the murder. His wife corroborated his story, and his mother-in-law, who was also present, confirmed it. For a moment, John's alibi seemed solid. Diamond was released after giving his statement. Subsequently, in order to track the couple's movements, the police ordered video surveillance of Thier's home. These camera images soon revealed that the couple's relationship was continuing. John had visited Michelle numerous times and usually spent the night there. Detectives later interviewed John's colleague, John Peyton Donald. Donald's statement revealed that Diamond had borrowed a gun from Donald just a few days before the murder. The 9mm Smith & Wesson 5906 model gun matched the caliber of the bullets removed from Marty's body. This further strengthened the police's suspicions, and they asked Donald to call John to ask for his gun back. However, John said that a thief had broken into his car and stolen the gun. But the security camera footage showed otherwise. His car had been seen outside Michelle's house on the night of the alleged theft, proving that the theft story was fabricated. Based on these suspicions, detectives re-interviewed John's wife, Lourdes. Lourdes decided to retract her previous statement. John had negligently forced her to lie for him. While watching the movie, John's cell phone rang, and he immediately went outside. When he returned home after 9 p.m., he washed the clothes he had worn that evening, which seemed strange to both Lourdes and his mother. An examination of Diamond's digital records showed that phone signals at the time of the murder indicated he was not far from the scene of the crime. As a result, in February 2001, the military police arrested John Diamond. He was formally charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Although the prosecution's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence, when the pieces were put together, they fit in a way that made the truth impossible to ignore. All signs pointed to Diamond as the perpetrator of the murder. Phone records confirming conversations with Michelle before the murder and during the time of the murder corroborated these signs. This situation also raised the possibility that Michelle and Diamond had planned the murder together. Statements from witnesses, including his wife Lourdes and his mother-in-law, that Diamond had rushed out of the house after receiving a phone call on the night of the murder, further strengthened the suspicions. The strongest evidence, however, was that ballistic tests showed the bullets removed from Marty's body were fired from the gun Diamond had borrowed. As a result of all these accusations, Diamond denied pulling the trigger himself. He said that Michelle was the one who shot Marty, and that when he arrived at the parking lot, he saw Michelle, wearing rubber gloves, shoot Marty. He claimed that he was not the mastermind of the plan, but rather presented himself as a man who had been drawn into Michelle's plans. The military court was not convinced by this defense, and Marty Thier was tried for attempted murder in connection with Marty's death and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. After Diamond went to prison, Michelle was charged on May 21, 2002, with first-degree murder in Marty's death and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. As the allegations against her grew more serious, she disappeared and lost track of her whereabouts. Months of police search efforts yielded results. It was discovered that she had prepared fake identities for herself and was living in Florida under false names using these fake identities. She hid in Florida for a while, changing her hair color and undergoing cosmetic procedures on her face to avoid recognition. However, her escape did not last long, and she was caught in 2002 during a police operation in Fort Lauderdale. Michelle was now one of the most important pieces of the murder puzzle for the police. By 2004, she was tried in a jury trial in Fayetteville. Prosecutors argued that Michelle's relationship with John Diamond was the primary motivation behind the murder. They emphasized that it was not just a forbidden love affair, but also a conspiracy. The jury was told that Marty's disappearance would allow Michelle and Diamond to be together, and that Marty had a large life insurance policy. The defense argued that there was no concrete evidence directly linking Michelle to the murder. They stated that while Michelle's relationship might be morally questionable, it did not mean she played a role in her husband's death. Throughout the trial, Michelle's cool demeanor was notable. At times, she shed tears, while at other times she observed the proceedings with an almost professional detachment. This contradictory image was also a factor in the jury's deliberations. Finally, the verdict was announced. Michelle was found guilty of aiding and abetting murder. At the end of 2004, Michelle Thier was sentenced to life imprisonment for aiding and abetting murder and conspiracy. She also received an additional 13-year sentence for the conspiracy charge. Today, Michelle Thier is still serving her life sentence in a women's prison in North Carolina. John Diamond continues to serve his life sentence in the military system. The death of Frank Marty Thier revealed how cracks hidden behind a seemingly perfect marriage could turn into a deadly plan. On one side, a disciplined, dedicated soldier. On the other, a sociable and outgoing psychologist. Two different lives had converged in high school, but as the years passed, these differences drove them apart. What happened that night was no accident. The ambush was no accident. John Diamond pulling the trigger was not a decision made alone. It was all part of a months-long secret affair, deep cracks in their marriage, and an inescapable plan. This case raised the question, why murder instead of divorce? For most people, there is no single logical answer to this question. But the decision made in this case destroyed not only a marriage but also a military career. Who do you think was primarily responsible in this story? John Diamond, who pulled the trigger, or Michelle, who planned it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching Crimera. See you in the next video.